Good morning. So I'm joined this morning by John Bernard. John, thank you very, very much for joining me this morning. So I'm going to give a quick kind of intro for those that don't know you. So a multi-award-winning marketeer, startup advisor. You've done some phenomenal projects over the years, a lot within the technology sector. So you're currently global marketing and sales leader for Malvern Panalytical. And you've previously worked for Dexcom, Mozilla, Sony Ericsson, Siemens, and have done some amazing kind of creating and leading innovation within tech. So thank you very, very much. As I say, really thrilled to...
Thanks for having me. Who are you talking about there? That person he sounds pretty cool. No, thanks very much. What an intro. How'd you follow that? Yeah, really pleased to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Yeah, it's really a really seriously impressive career in terms of what you've delivered. And I'm looking forward to going through the questions so that our audience can kind of hear your insights. Before we do, would you do me a huge favour and just give me a quick lowdown on Malvern Panalytical?
Yeah, sure. So Malvern Panalytical, joint venture between Malvern and Panalytical about 8 years ago, is a scientific instrumentations company with a headquarter in Malvern in the UK. And Malvern Panalytical is an instrumentation company, as mentioned, but it's really diffractors, X-ray machines. One of our key messages is making big things small. So our customers are in the fields of pharma, consumer electronics, primary materials, advanced materials, things like cement. And what our customers pretty much do is they look at, on a very particle physics level, the materials that make up their products, some of the machines that they make, and they can make their machines longer lasting, smaller. In the case of things like automotive, we can make materials more durable, and that's all done by our customers using our technology, again, which are diffractors, X-ray machines, and making big things really small. So that's what Malvern Panalytical do.
Thank you very much for that. So let's dive into your kind of background and understand a bit more about your career. So I think probably the best place to start is, would you tell us a bit more about your career journey so we can kind of see how did you get to where you are today?
Great question. So I started, probably if I go back to, I don't know, when I was 17 or 18 years old, I always wanted to go into marketing, to be that person that was filming in exotic locations, adverts for car companies or beauty firms. And I just loved that idea. It was more the lifestyle that attracted me as this young, naive 16, 17-year-old. And before my career started, I went to university in Huddersfield. And in the early 90s, there weren't that many universities doing marketing as a pure discipline. Interestingly enough, that's only just a touch over 30 years ago. And there weren't that many courses. And it's amazing to see how far we've come as an industry since then. But my first job was a graduate trainee role at Granada. So it was Granada Motorway Services, Granada, which has now been swallowed up as part of the ITV group. And it was a great role as a graduate trainee. I was at the bottom of the ladder, doing the jobs nobody wanted to do, doing a lot of really quite basic chores, but they were great to learn how to work with agencies, how to start managing budgets for the first time, real basic things like how to operate in a marketing team, because when you go from university or with your friends, life's just a bit of a ball. Things start getting serious when it gets to being in the working environment, and you have to wear your serious hat. But it was a great grounding, and Granada was a fantastic blue chip company to start that career. 4 years after that, I moved to Ford Motor Company, where I was an events manager. Great career as somebody who was young, single, traveling the world. One of the areas I worked in was in Formula One. And so a lot of weekends I would spend doing a lot of the event management and meeting Verstappen, Eddie Irvine, working for Stuart Ford. So fantastic role. But I think my career really picked up in 2002 working for Siemens Mobile. I was headhunted into a role as channel marketing manager and worked my way up, marketing manager, head of marketing. And this was my first role of really writing marketing strategy, really managing teams, working with customers, both on an operator level, Vodafone, T-Mobile, Carphone Warehouse, but also end users, learning for the first time about customer needs, delivering products that the customers wanted. Fantastic role, sponsorship. And from there, after 2.5 years, I was lucky enough to be headhunted into LG, which was my first experience of working in a startup. LG, I think I was employee number three, Korean firm, wanted to really replicate the success of Nokia and Siemens and Motorola. Had a fantastic time there, built the marketing team, wore similar hats with commercially, working with our sales partners. Headhunted to Sony Ericsson after that. So I then spent about 10 years in the mobile phone industry. But in the late 2000s, I had a real desire to get into software. Facebook was founded, I think, in 2008, 2009. Twitter was becoming a thing. Google had IPO'd in 2004. And I worked at a company, I moved into a company called Canonical, who have a brand, an operating system called Ubuntu, a server system software, cloud software. And it was my first foray into a real Silicon Valley organization, only 500 people strong. So many of the viewers won't have heard of them. But what was great was after 2 or 3 years there, I then moved into Mozilla, or the brand that many of the audience will know as Firefox, to really kick off their mobile side and really developing their mobile phone portfolio. So it was combining my love of tech with mobile phones and software. And that was really building this mobile phone. The mission was to get the next billion online, which we didn't quite manage to achieve, but Google have taken that baton and have continued the job that we did. And I can touch on some of the roles and things I did at that time, but again, fantastic role. I then was headhunted into a role at Dexcom, living in Edinburgh. I've been living here for the last 18 years or so. And Dexcom, who are a medtech company that many people may not have heard of 7 or 8 years ago, have one product, something that is slapped onto your arm, which is called a continuous glucose monitor. And my role there, aside from being employee number one in the organization, was to build the marketing team, but also strongly support the sales team, wear different hats, looking at logistics, sales forecasting, and really building the organization up to, I mean, as a whole, Dexcom is listed on NASDAQ as a multi-billion-dollar organization by value and by revenue. But it was a fantastic ride as my third startup, having some real success, really using marketing as a tool, as a lever to drive what I call both volume and brand. Volume, i.e., sales, and then brand of an organization or the products that we sell to really get customers, advocates, real ambassadors of the organization. And then after 7 great years at Dexcom, I was once again headhunted, luckily enough, to work for Malvern Panalytical, where I am today, who are part of the Spectris Group FTSE 250 organization, where again, my goal is to really help continue the rapid growth of Spectris and Malvern Panalytical into the future. So 28 years I worked out before jumping on the call today since I graduated. And I've really loved working in marketing, working in the industry, of course, working in tech, whether it's medtech, software, mobile phones, scientific technology, and ultimately empowering our customers to do great things and enjoy our products. So that's a brief summary about me. I will say, as you mentioned at the top of the call, I was lucky to win a couple of awards for the work that we did. I won a Cannes Lion for some of the campaigns we did at Dexcom back in 2018. And then on a personal level, I was lucky enough to be recognized by the Marketing Society and Marketing Week back in 2013 as being Marketer of the Year. So those checks in the post really work. So that's me.
Thank you very, very much. And it's interesting sort of hearing kind of that kind of career path that you've taken. What would you say is your approach to marketing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think the first thing, probably from my time at Siemens, my approach, I would say, is quite strategic. So I'm very big on getting a strategic plan, making sure I've got buy-in from finance and sales to look at what our targets are, what our KPIs are. So the first thing I'd say is quite strategic and really just making sure we've got that plan and we all know what we have to do at the start of every year or before the year finishes for the next year. I think the second thing I would add is my approach to marketing is leading from the front. I know many marketeers will say this, but I work far too many hours, and it's almost that leading by example, which shows the wider team and it shows other departments that we're committed, we're hardworking, we're really looking to aim and to hit the goals that we're wanting to achieve as a company. So, excuse me, leading from the front is really key. And the third approach I think I've got is being open and transparent. I know that in the past I've worked, especially in my early career, some people were almost akin to mill owners. They were very much, okay, information is power. We're not going to share this information. But I think the opposite develops a really open and great culture in a company. So being open and transparent, leading from the front, and being strategic really, in my experience, creates teams that feel valued, know what they've got to do, but also know where they stand as a team or as an individual. So that's tended to be my approach, and I'm touching wood here, but it's tended to work thus far.
And I was going to ask you about your leadership style. You've touched on it there about kind of leading from the front. Is there anything else you say about how you sort of lead and manage your teams?
Yeah, I think I am somewhat of a nurturer, and that comes across a little bit in being a mentor outside of the working environment for the Marketing Society, the Chartered Institute. I love developing and nurturing teams, looking at skills gap, looking at maybe any outside additional skills that people need. Working in an international company, sometimes it can be things like language skills as well as software skills, but nurturing, I'm a really big fan on, and that's a big part of my management style. I'd also say I'm quite flexible. So if somebody needs to go for a dentist's appointment or they've got to go to a doctor, many of the team are working many hours. We're not a 9 to 5 organization, and working in marketing generally, we're not typically working 9 till 5. So I think having that flexible approach kind of ties back to being open and transparent a little bit. But having that flexible approach does mean that you build loyalty, but also it's great to collaborate with the people in your team, and that can extend to others outside of marketing too. So I'd say flexible, open, but also really being a nurturer and someone who wants their teams to progress and be the best version of them that they can be.
So it's been a challenging time for marketers. 2023 has been a challenging year without a shadow of a doubt. Be really interested to sort of know what do you think might be the main priorities, challenges for kind of senior leaders, um, for
Great
senior leaders to
question.
overcome, and I guess the other thing, given the role that you do, is what about also that relationship with the finance teams at the same time?
Yes. So I look at finance and sales as being two of the most important partners that we work with as marketers for different reasons. Now, obviously, other departments are important. HR are key to help nurturing, to help develop our staff. IT are key to help build those platforms that are essential for us as we're building campaigns, getting spikes on our website, making sure our infrastructure, our back end is all fairly solid. But where finance, particularly, and sales are important, sales clearly is a real partner to us. 20 years ago, somebody in sales may have said something like, oh, marketing, you're just the coloring in department, which was once what I was told. And we were seen as almost an addition to sales. Now we're really not just complementing sales, but we are, as marketeers, driving revenue, really driving the growth of the organization. And we have things like marketing mix modeling today, which can actually show the percentages of the revenue that's driven through the marketing outside of that building of the brand, that brand equity. So for me, it has been a challenging time, you're right, especially since 2020. For me, getting that buy-in from both finance and sales before the start of the year has been really, really important for me. And the way that we'll do budgeting processes normally start in August, September. Unless you're a small organization, you might start later in the year. But it's actually, again, wearing that strategic hat, showing what we're planning to do for the year, showing what the outputs will be. Some of the marketing mix might be brand awareness. For example, some of our advertising, some of our PR might be reactive if we've got a product recall or something that needs eyes on it. But ultimately, much of our digital work has a very clear ROI, and you can actually see what percentage times $1 or $10 you'll spend, we will get as a payback for that. So explaining that to finance, showing that if we're given, let's say, $10 million over a year, we can actually deliver on that, whatever that target is for the year. And where it conversely also helps the sales teams is, especially during COVID, there were times where salespeople couldn't go out seeing customers, seeing key clients, and yet marketing was driving revenue through paid search, through all of our digital activities, advertising, affiliate deals we were doing. And so bringing that trust and showing, look, we're not just the coloring in department, we're actually driving the business to further success helps those two partners because when it comes to the presentations in September or October at budget time, standing up as a leader, presenting to our board or our leadership team and saying, look, this is what we'd like, this is what we think we'll achieve. Having two allies in that room in both sales and finance are really key to overcome those challenges that you talk about, and making sure that we have the resources to be able to do our job as a marketing team.
That's really good advice. Any top tips for the style of presenting to get that buy-in?
Yeah, so for me, it's just having those early meetings. I'm a big fan of presenting before you present. And so it's a lot of time. And this is where, unfortunately, I talked earlier on about, perhaps working too many hours, and it may not be the most efficient way of working, but in terms of getting the results, it works really well. So it would be before a big meeting, actually grabbing half an hour or an hour with especially the finance team and saying, look, this is what we're going to be presenting. What flags do you have? What questions might you have? And getting in front of those questions before it then gets positioned or presented in that official capacity. It's such a simple trick. And I know not everyone will have time and not everyone will have maybe the inclination to want to do that. But in my experience across multiple companies, it's worked really well. And also the finance team feel a part of what you're presenting. I've done this before, again, with both sales and finance, where I've tried to get co-ownership of the campaigns that we're doing. And I've even had one example where, on the back of a very successful year, finance were very much, well, we were part of that success. We signed off all of that work. So, we own that too. And that's great because ultimately I don't care. What I care about is that we succeed as an organization. The teams are all really happy. The teams are motivated, love the work they do, and we're growing and hitting our KPIs. Culture is also really important too. If you can build that culture where we are having people, multiple people owning different things and collaborating together, it does, again, in my experience, generate a lovely working environment and a very open and trusting environment, which again at the top of the call was something I care passionately about.
Thank you for that. I think you're one of the first people that we've had on this who's really talked about the relationship with finance, and it is so important. And yeah, like
Yeah. I mean, finance, I can in previous roles, finance could have been a block or needed to really have many things explained to overcome maybe an objection as to spending, millions of dollars. We have different objectives at the end of the day. With finance, there'll be operating margins, operating profit margins. There'll be a key set of KPIs. Things like margin on a product are different. You can actually have more control over that. But if somebody in marketing or in the commercial team is saying, look, actually, we'd like another £1 million to drive $3 million more or $10 million more, that's great because it will hit our overall bottom line. But you have to, as a marketeer, be sensitive to the fact that over in finance, they've got a whole different set of KPIs, and that a finance team running a region might have to themselves go to a global finance head, a CFO in the US or in the UK, to in turn get buy-in. So understanding that process, for me, it's been really invaluable. And I've really, I would say, tuned into it probably over the last 10, 12 years in my last 2 or 3 roles, the importance of that. And I would like to think many more marketeers now are, if perhaps not talking about it openly, I think are behind the scenes realizing that it's such a key partner to work with. Many CFOs become CEOs in the future as well. I think in the FTSE 100, it's probably something in the region of 70% of CEOs come from finance. So I also think as an industry, as we're building up marketing as an industry and showing the benefits we bring to organizations, having that at CEO level too brings more benefits. So it's really key.
love that, absolutely love that. Now I can see that you are clearly a very positive person. And to finish this off, I'd like to talk about mindset. We talk a lot about mindset on Q&As that we do.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, I'm curious myself to kind of learn from others, but is there a daily habit or practice or something that you actively do to encourage positive mindset that you could share with
There is.
share with all of us?
Yeah, there is one thing, but mindset is fascinating. I've had, just to touch on that before I give the answer for a second, there are times where, especially in new organizations, this hasn't happened at Malvern Panalytical, but in some previous organizations, you'd hear, oh, we don't do things like that. That's not how things are done. And I've often thought, and on a couple of occasions said, look, if you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. There are new ways of doing things, especially as we moved as marketeers into the digital realm, which many people initially outside of marketing didn't understand. Maybe some still don't understand. And I think us as marketeers, or we as marketeers, also have a job to help train and share that knowledge base with the rest of the business so they can understand that they need to let go of those limitations, because otherwise we won't be able to grow. But the one thing I do, which is, I would not say it's premeditated, but I have an 8-year-old pup who is lurking outside the door here at the moment. And every morning, I'm a bit of an early bird, so I tend to start work at about 8 o'clock-ish, especially dealing with colleagues and friends in Asia Pac. But I go for a walk, and we're very lucky that quite close to the house we have the Water of Leith. It's like a lovely river with lots of trees and forests around it. And so I just take half an hour every morning walking with her, sometimes as the sun's coming up, especially at this time of year. And it's great just to balance yourself and get yourself ready for the day and to spend some time thinking. Sometimes I have podcasts on,
Yeah.
sometimes I don't. I just walk and take in nature and look to see what's happening around. And that's, yeah, for me, it's almost just a balancing before the day starts and just a time for me. And I think we're not great at having me time in our busy lives, but that's one thing I tend to do fairly religiously that also gets me out of the house, because I work from home. I've worked from home for many years. Many of us have worked from home over the last, especially 3 years. And it's good to get that B12 on our skin and to get some fresh air and just a distraction from work. And I think that does help, as mentioned, just prepare oneself for the day ahead and do put one's best foot forward. So yeah, that maybe not the most philosophical, or I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and meditate for 30 minutes over a cup of lovely hot chai tea. I couldn't do that. But yeah, half an hour with the dog first thing is really refreshing and sets me up for the day.
I do the same. I think there's no better way to start. If I'm here in Worcestershire, then I'm sort of over the fields with toffee. And if I'm working down in London, I'll go around the parks. But I
Yeah.
couldn't agree more. Sets me up for the day. I get up early, do my exercise, fresh air. Yeah, bit of sunshine, hopefully, and
I'm
then
missing the exercise. So I've learned something there. I need to add the exercise bit into my life religiously. That's the bit I'm missing. Thank you for that, Suze.
well, the one that I've committed to for 2024 is yoga.
Oh, good.
Yeah, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to put it in my diary, mark it out, and do yoga. That's going to be
Do you
my
know,
goal.
that's an interesting thing you just mentioned there. Calendars. We all live by our calendars, be it in our personal lives, the mighty kitchen calendar,
Yeah,
or our work calendars. And I started last year to diarize the dog walk. And I have also found I should exercise much more than I do, but in our busy lives, actually putting something in the diary tends to mean it's going to happen, because they say it takes 13 times for something to become a habit, be it going to the gym, exercising, attending a webinar, doing a piece of work or a way of working. And I think because we're so accustomed to our diary giving us something
no,
and then us doing it, actually what you've done there and what you've talked about, putting exercises in the diary, is the best way of achieving and creating a habit. I know that's not technically connected to marketing, but it is a way of working that many of us could, I think, learn from.
well, I will let you know how that all goes. But John, thank you. Fabulous
Thank
answers.
you.
Everyone will be really, really interested in listening to that. And I'm very, very grateful to you for giving up your time this morning.
Pleasure. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Take care. Bye bye.